tuning into podcasts, could we finally see that shift away from mainstream media being the arbiter of truth, like a genuine shift?
We've seen a significant shift where people are getting their news from their platform, and we are the number one source of news in the world. So yeah, I think that is happening. And I think it's also like once people see that they've been fooled, that the legacy media tricked them, and they were lied to. When that happens, as soon as they realize that's happening, and it hasn't happened just a few times, but many times, they just no longer believe the media for good reason. Because it's like, I think it's Abe Lincoln said, you can fool some people all the time, or fool some of the time. You can't fool all people all the time. And so more and more people just get like, well, I'm just going to go see what the actual source material is on X, so I'm going to check community notes, and actually figure out what's going on.
The other thing too, what you mentioned about free speech and the fact that misinformation and hate speech is often used as an excuse. I think the perfect distillation of that was this week with the Liz Cheney hoax, and what you were talking about, people who get their news from people like, on MSNBC. Morning Joe went on an entire rant this morning about that, and was talking about the dangerous disinformation, and in the same breath was talking about the Liz Cheney hoax as if it was real when it's been thoroughly debunked. Yes.
Like that. It's like this the sheer cognitive dissonance of complaining about disinformation while then immediately spouting disinformation it's like mind blowing.
It was within the same minute too, and then to your point about like using that as the the case to like censor speech and violate constitutional rights. Tim Walz has gone on cable news and said that same thing. There is no guarantee of the First Amendment when it comes to hate speech and disinformation. And he's absolutely incorrect. And obviously, like I just said, the people who are determining what is hate speech or disinformation are often the people who push disinformation themselves.
Yeah, exactly. They who smelt it dealt it. So yeah, but I actually got a ton of calls and a big, a lot of people approached me this weekend about the Liz Cheney hoax, where they were actually literally on the impression that Trump had suggested executing Liz Cheney. I'm like, that's totally insane. What Trump was saying was that, Liz Cheney would be much less of a warmonger if she had to go to the front lines herself. And it's a lot easier to, want to do war if you're having fancy dinners in, say, Washington, D.C. or something, while other people die in trenches. So basically saying that Liz Cheney and her dad are obviously, huge warmongers, and like they love war and they profit from it, so they have like stock ownership in companies that profit from war, which is a terrible incentive. So like Trump's right, like that people just should. It's just basically lacks empathy to be living in comfort while other people are dying of war, and you just would have a very different perspective if you had to actually go fight that war yourself. And that's what he was saying about Liz Cheney, and it's a very valid point.
Exactly. Yeah. One thing too I wanted to hit on, well, I know Dan talked about it, is if you're in line, to stay in line. Another thing is if you're on your commute home from work and you haven't voted yet, get in line if your polling places are still open. And also to text your friends, call your friends, and ask if they voted. And that their vote could, especially in states like Pennsylvania, could change the outcome of the election. So just a reminder there, polls are starting to close. I think first polls are closing in just under 10 minutes. And then we have, every hour on to 10 p.m. later, polls will be closing. So just a reminder there to, encourage all of your friends to vote. There's still time.
By the way, guys, just before you go to the hands, Washington Post 4 minutes ago put out a story that says, for nearly half of Trump voters, overt appreciation of Hitler is acceptable. Literally minutes ago, they say
What?
50% of Trump voters. Yeah, just just now, they say 50% of Trump voters would still back a candidate who praised Hitler. That's the Washington Post. So they're sealing. That's the last nail in the coffin.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's totally insane. I mean, who they ask, you know? But that is just totally nuts. I mean, there's the sheer amount of propaganda being pushed by legacy media is just outrageous. Um, you know, they're sort of shielded by a Supreme Court decision um, that makes that literally allows them to flat out lie about public figures and face no repercussions. Um, it's like kind of a maybe an overly generous interpretation of the First Amendment. Like people should be able to say what they want to say, but there's still penalties for saying that. Like there's still civil and tort penalties for saying that. So you know, I do think it's probably not that doesn't make sense that you can just blatantly lie and over again and just get away with it with zero financial consequences.
They're doing you a favor. The metrics on X kind of speak for themselves.
Yeah, just
Hey,
they
hey,
kind
Elon.
of are doing me a favor, frankly, because more and more people just come to X to find out what's really going on.
Hey, Elon. I wanted your thoughts on the Google interference thing. I mean, considering how big Google is, do you think that's illegal what they're doing, just suppressing Trump's name?
Well, it's not clear that in that particular instance, I think they didn't, at least in that instance, did not suppress Trump's name. It was that when people searched for Harris, it was showing them the locations for Harris County, uh, not where to vote for Kamala in general, just for Harris County. So that was, I think, a misunderstanding, at least on that front. I mean, there are other question marks that are maybe more significant, like when Trump had the interview with Joe Rogan. It was the biggest interview in the world, and you could not find it. You'd search for it on Google or YouTube, couldn't find it for several hours, which is that's very odd, you know, because it's obviously it's Joe Rogan's channel on YouTube, and you know that's YouTube already knows that's a big channel. So it's like they claimed it like that there was so much so many people watched the interview that it triggered some automatic search ban or something like that. But I mean, come on, it's Joe Rogan's channel, and it took a long time to fix it.
Yeah, exactly. Those should be easier fixes, especially if it's like national news. You know, if it's number one hosted on your platform and then like national news, it should just be like a glaring alarm bell that like it's not searchable. And you know, you'd think there'd be some sort of guardrails for one of the most prominent users on the platform to, you know, I think their excuse was that there was like mass reporting of it or something as spam. Or I forget.
No, that
Yeah.
doesn't. They've looked into it. They've apparently, I think Calacanis and David Sachs and Friedberg were talking about it on the podcast. That explanation of people flagging it just didn't make sense because it happens all the time, and there's you know there's a system in place to make sure that doesn't impact the ranking for so many hours. So the explanation didn't have too much weight.
I didn't think so either. It wouldn't make sense for them to be able to game the system.
Yeah, it's certainly the case that Google prioritizes left-wing media in their search results. Also prioritizes quite a bit of Reddit, which is very left-wing at this point. So, you know, there's just a natural left-wing bias that Google has. And, yeah, you know.
What about Sundar's letter to employees asking them to be neutral? Is it genuine? Is it too little, too late?
I think his message is genuine, but it does say something that he would have to actually send such a message, because he's sending such a message because he's worried that people won't be, and because they haven't been at times. I mean, when Trump won in 2016, I mean, Google had like a struggle session next level. Like they had like give people time off and like psychological counseling because Trump won. Like that's how far left Google is. You know, like they're like, people are just like literally bawling their eyes out and taking days off work, and like that's the level of psychological trauma just because Trump won, you know, quite fairly won the presidency against tough odds. So yeah, those people are still there at Google. I don't think they've changed their mind about Trump for the most part. So yeah, it's a real concern. But I think it's very telling that when you look at the fact that the Democrats outspent the Republicans, so Trump was way outspent in dollars, including my contribution in the swing states and just generally.